In this video, we'll look at some tips for entering math into the iMathAS system. So with computational type questions, you can actually enter mathematical expressions right into iMathAS. Although it takes a little bit of understanding of how the system understands your input. If you've typed math into a calculator, this is very similar to that. So for example, we can use the plus sign for addition. So 5 plus 3 just gives us 5 plus 3. You can use the minus sign for minus. So we can do minus like that. To do multiplication, you can either use parentheses like we do in math, so something like that, or you can use the asterisk key, which is like a shift 8 on most keyboards, and then do something like 2 times 3. If we want to do division, you use a backslash. So like a 3 backslash 5 gives us 3 divided by 5. If we want to do an exponent, then we use the caret key. So 2 and then caret, which is like a shift 6 on most keyboards. 2 caret 3 gives us 2 raised to a power of 3, which we see evaluates to 8. In math, we use parentheses to group together expressions, and we do that in this input as well. So for example, if we wanted 5 divided by 3 plus 4, then if we typed in 5 divided by 3 plus 4, the system understands this as 5 divided by 3 and then plus 4. And so we need to group together the 3 plus 4 for the system to understand this in a way that we want. So we would do 5 and then wrap that 3 plus 4 in parentheses, and then we see the 5 divided by 3 plus 4 like we wanted. So we use parentheses in this input a lot like we do in mathematics. iMathAS also accepts some of the common math constants such as pi and e. If you want to use pi in your answer, you just type pi for pi, and then it gives you the pi symbol, which evaluates to about 3.1415. And so you can do something like pi divided by 2, gives you pi divided by 2, and pretty straightforward there. A similar thing with the constant e. If you type in e, it recognizes that as the constant, 2.718, and so on. There are also a handful of functions that iMathAS understands. So one commonly used one is the square root function. So sqrt gives you square root, and then in parentheses you enter whatever you want inside the square root. So sqrt, and then put 144 inside parentheses, gives you the square root of 144. The absolute value function works in a similar way. So we do abs, and then in parentheses we can do something like negative 15, and that gives us the absolute value of negative 15. iMathAS also understands the common trigonometry functions. So like sine of pi divided by 2, we would just enter sin and then use parentheses pi divided by 2 for that. And then it understands that as the sine function. Similarly, it understands cosine as cos. It understands tangent as tan. And it also recognizes the common inverse trig functions. So we can use arcsine. So we could enter something like arcsine of 0.5, and it recognizes that. Or we can enter sine with a superscript of -1. So sine inverse of 0.5. It also recognizes that notation. If we want to enter a logarithmic expression, we can do log, and then an underscore, and then enter in the base for the logarithmic function. And then within parentheses, we can enter whatever the input should be. So in this case, we could enter something like 8, and that'll give us log base 2 of 8, which equals 3. In some questions, you'll be expected to enter or use an infinity sign. And so if you type 2 lowercase o's, so O, the system will recognize that as infinity. So to type in infinity, you do 2 lowercase o's. Sometimes your answers will be involving a DNE, which stands for does not exist. So if you want to use DNE, you just type in DNE, and the system recognizes that it does not exist. Similarly, for formula type inputs or expression type inputs, a lot of the same rules apply. And then to enter variables, you just type in the letter name of the variable. So something like X is recognized as variable, or Y, or so on. If you have a variable name that has an underscore in it, like n subscript t, then you would type n and then do an underscore t to get n sub t.